how does the availability of these drugs affect treatment? In other words, are they available nationwide? Are they available only from specialty pharmacies? Can anybody get them? Can any patient who needs these drugs get these drugs?
The availability is really financial availability. I mean, anyone can order these drugs, but sometimes, again, patients can't afford the copays or don't want to pay the copays. And I think that really affects
the only ones that can't go through in-office dispensing for all in-office dispensing programs is like the MSEds, because the drug company has a REMS program that's restrictive, and they can't open it up across the country. So there are select practices across the country that can dispense the MSEds for that company, but others won't be able to. So those all need to go through specialty pharmacy.
So that implies to me that there are geographic areas, hot spots where these drugs are available and others where they're not.
Well, from in-office dispensing, but they're available all over the country. There should be no reason why a patient cannot receive an oral oncolytic for their disease.
Other than copay.
Other than copay.
Other than cost.
And the oral parity laws, you don't think are having the impact they should have for that?
As of now, no. In concept, they're very nice and they were very well intended, but implementation-wise, they could be better for sure.
All right, and if we're going to take a look at future trends here, I'm getting a sense, because these drugs now are common and there's more every day, where are we going in the future? Are we seeing the end of IV chemotherapeutics?
No.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's definitely a need for IV chemotherapy. I think there's a move more towards oral drugs. But there's a number of things that I think we're going to see in the future. I mean, again, even in our own practice, we now have a navigator that's going to help the patient obtain these drugs, as well as our IV drugs, and get approvals. I think there's going to be more web-based programs or app-based programs based on the ASCO plenary session and other studies as well, showing the benefits of those. And then ultimately, I mean, hopefully there's going to be competition for cost and between some of these drug companies that have the same class of drugs, and hopefully that will bring down costs.
Yeah, but in the meantime, somebody's got to pay for this right now, right? And I want to go back, before we finish, this money thing is bothering me, because it bothers you too. Mm-hmm. As a physician now, I want my patients to get the latest, greatest, and best. And I don't mean necessarily a better side effect profile. I want a better drug. Somebody is facing me across the table with a terrible tumor, whether this is multiple myeloma, whether it's colorectal cancer. And by the way, hepatocellular carcinoma, really expensive, because at some point somebody's going to get transplanted, which is off scale. So I want some large scale analysis to integrate all of this so that somebody can say, sure, this is an expensive drug, but look at the alternatives. In the long run, maybe there are more. Who's doing that? Who should do that? Devise me the perfect system.
I don't know what the perfect system is, but I know that in general, medicine and oncology is moving more toward bundled payment. The hospitals have already done it, and now the outpatient is going that direction too, where if you have a stage 2, HER2 positive, ER negative breast cancer, this is the amount of money you have for that patient throughout the rest of their life, and you have to use that amount of money to treat that patient. And you can do whatever you want with that cost. And if we don't start to control costs now, then that's where we will be.
Holy mackerel, can you imagine? Can you imagine? You've got somebody doing well, you just ran out of money, sorry, go away, die.
That's what will happen. I mean,
so I think really it's a global problem that needs to be addressed in other ways. I think you can offset the drug costs if you create efficiencies in the other areas that we're wasting billions of dollars in money. And so I think that's, with the oncology care model, value-based insurance design, all the things that we're talking about, pathway adherence, are all an effort to decrease waste in the system, right? It gets into coordination of care. I don't think until we address all the inefficiencies in care that we have in the US, from coordination of care to scans being done inappropriately, lab tests being done inappropriately, wrong treatments, treatments given too late near the end of life. Those are, decreased hospitalizations, ER visits. All of those areas will decrease costs globally. And that can help offset some of the drug
Oh,
costs.
but
that's just one piece.
this is Rebecca of Sunnybrook
I know,
Farm.
I know.
I mean,
But something has to change moving forward.
I've heard since 1976, when I finished medical school, I am old, that something's got to change.
A one-payer system?
A one-payer, I don't know. But I've always heard this. Well, as soon as we reduce the slack in the system, as soon as we get rid of all this waste, then we're going to be able to pay for these great oral oncolytics. And I've always been struck that somebody's waste is somebody else's really good care. It just depends whose ox is getting gored. I mean, does that make any sense to you?
Right. So the challenge for me here is that, I mean, I heard every single part of the whole spectrum and their points. Everyone has the same vision. Okay, we need to get better, we need to improve, we need to decrease cost. But they also say, well, but we also want to lead innovation. And who pays for that? And who's going to help us to overcome that?
He's going to say the minute that you reduce costs, there's a lot more money that's going to go into R&D, right?
Should.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Yes.
Right. But you can hear the screaming now. No money for that. That's a waste. And more money for you. Why don't you two duke it out, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you hate to use the word rationing,
Ooh.
you know, to throw it out there. But at the end of the day, it's going to be who has the money and who doesn't. You know, so to get to your point about bundled payments, okay, Mrs. Jones, I can only use so much here. If you want X, you're going to have to pay for it. That's where you're headed. You know, if you really want that, you want the gold treatment that we don't, it's not in the value-based framework, but you want it, you have to pay for
But
it.
that is so antithetical
It is.
to what is expressed as the American values in healthcare, which is J. Arthur Gottrocks gets the good stuff,
Right.
and everybody else doesn't.
Studies have shown patients don't care about the cost of healthcare unless they're paying for it.
So true.
But if the cost of healthcare is so many standard deviations beyond what they can pay for, that doesn't work either, does it?
It does not, no.
Well, it will get, I mean, it's not sustainable, as we all have said, and something will happen. We are just witnessing as it comes move forward. The deficit will grow, and there will be some cuts, and we will adapt. Eventually, everything goes back to the median, right? So that's the thing. Right now, we're just talking about the fringes in medicine, but everything will get back to normal at some point, and we'll get to a better sense. Right now, we're like crazy boom, stock market with like drugs and the others, and it will get better. But
you know, in the long run, a lot of people are going to die. I mean, yeah, we may center back toward the median, but at some point, somebody's not going to get a pill that he or she might benefit from. These are great, great drugs. These oral oncolytics are terrific drugs, right? And there's more of them every day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And if we simply say, don't worry about it, you can't get it, but someday everybody will get them, that's a whole generation lost. What do you do
That's not
today?
going to work in this country.
That's not gonna work.
It won't work in this
Nobody will
country.
accept that.
No, no.
So what's your plan? You have all of the objections. What's Mr. Cynic over
all
here?
right,
What-
He's gonna print money.
It's actually one of my best friends from med school is the COO of Kaiser in Southern California. And that system seems to work very well because Kaiser is a nonprofit. It owns the hospital. It is the insurance company.
Yeah.
The doctors work for Kaiser, and they're incentivized to keep costs down, to keep
Okay.
patients out of hospitals. They're paid very well, so they like working for Kaiser. They get, pensions and things that other physicians don't, and the people the greedy people that are milking the system are taken out of that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And Kaiser grew out of the early socialist movement back in the mid-20th century, back in the 20s, right? So basically, Kaiser is, in some respects, the private sector's answer to single payer.
Right.
Right? So is what you're really arguing that if we adapt the Kaiser model nationally, single payer is the only way to go? Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps. I mean, if it works as well as it does there, perhaps.
Well, we have to look at the mirrors of other industrialized countries that are actually doing better in healthcare than we do.
Right.
We have all the innovation, we have all the bells and whistles and drugs, but we are not doing better in outcomes.
That's right.
To me, what's important is what's going to happen at the end. Are we actually living longer, better lives?
Exactly.
And the answer is no. So we have to change, but we need very strong-willed people that actually are going to compromise to make things happen the right way.
Again, new therapies are expensive. I can remember reading, because I was young at that time, when dialysis first came on. There were committees. Only so-and-so got dialysis because it was so expensive. We're
Wow.
not going to give it to you, only to you. Now everybody gets dialysis.
Right.
Took a while, right? And this is a new therapy, these oral oncolytics, which is what we're discussing today. Expensive, but with real benefits. Somebody's going to have to figure out a way to make them affordable for everybody, right? And change the silo at the very least. So with that being said, open your crystal balls. What do you see going forward for the oral oncolytics? Are they going to enter the mainstream? Are they going to be affordable? Where do we go on this?
I think they're already in the mainstream, and they're very expensive right now. But I think in the future, I think that we're going to have multiple drugs that target the same molecule, and I think it's hopefully there's going to be some competition to keep the costs down. I mean, it's already happened. For instance, at Sloan Kettering, there were 2 drugs for colon cancer, and one of them was twice as expensive as the other one. And one of the colon cancer leaders, Len Saltz, took one of the drugs off the formulary.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
We're doing the same at CTCA, it's the same thing.
Okay, then let me ask you this. Right now, you look at a drug like Exosamib for multiple myeloma. Game changer, good drug, people like it?
It's a great drug. People like it. Is it going to cure the disease? No, it's not going to cure the disease. But it offers a long-term therapy that's convenient. I think at the end of the day, everybody in the whole system is going to need to pitch in and, the pharmaceutical companies reduce a little bit of the price. The payers will have to give in a little bit. The physicians, everybody across the board.
The hospitals.
The hospitals,
Yeah.
the specialty pharmacies, everybody.
Right. Up to now, it's been the physicians and the patients
That's
that
it.
have
Okay.
been the only ones regulated.
And the other drug we were talking about, regorafenib, HCC, colorectal cancer, game changer, great drug. Everybody's going to want it. Do you see it going there?
It's a good drug. It's prolonging survival of our patients. It's given an extra option for patients who have no other alternatives. And it may not cure, but it may serve as a bridge until the better drug may come down the line. So, and I've seen some patients with certain biomarkers, like because this is a dirty tyrosine kinase inhibitor, we call it dirty because it goes and attacks multiple targets at the same time. Some of those targets, actually, if you have them, you may respond beautifully to those medications, even if you don't have a specific. Like I have a patient of mine who had a KDR mutation, which is a specific that a target of regorafenib, and had an amazing response to the treatment beyond any other patient. So those N of ones are always the ones that give us, okay, we should try these patients and like getting these patients to the next level.
All right. Now that we have solved all the problems in medicine and all the problems in the economy for the nation, going forward for all time, we're out of time. What I want to do is I want to ask each of you to just sum up, if you can, one thought that our viewers might like to take away, you'd like our viewers to take away. Dr. Biran, why don't you start?
So I think oral oncolytics are excellent. There's more in the pipeline coming out. They offer patients a very convenient and effective mechanism of treating their disease. The cost is going to be an issue down the line. So something we have to work on.
Dr. D'Amato?
From my perspective, it's all about access. We need to have a system in place that makes sure that all of our patients can access these drugs at the same cost, whether it's an intravenous therapy, an oral therapy, and whether it comes from a specialty pharmacy or a dispensing program. At the end of the day, it's about the patient and making sure our patients have access to the drugs.
Dr. Henningson?
The oral oncolytics are a major advance, improves quality of life for patients, improves survival. The cost issue is a major issue and will need to be addressed in the future. And then the other thing is I think we'll be using more technology to improve adherence as well as helping with side effects with these drugs.
And Dr. Loaiza-Bonilla?
Well, oncolytics are here to stay, and now we are using combinations. We're going to use them also along with immune therapy, which is going to be even more expensive. So we need to find a system that makes these medications accessible to everyone involved, and that we're doing the right biomarker, and as you said, the right drug at the right time, and looking forward to see what the future holds for this.
You know, I'll tell you, this is a complicated problem. You know why? Cancer is complicated. And anything it seems to me that you can do to make it easier to take your therapy with a therapy that is effective, that's a good idea. And I've been watching the development of chemotherapeutics for my entire career. This is exciting times. And when we're arguing about money as opposed to medicine, that's good, because it means the medicine probably is good.
There you go.
And I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank
Thank
you
you.
guys for viewing. On behalf of our panel, I'd like to thank you at home. This has been Specialty Pharmacy Times. I'd like you to join us for our next one.